We're friends because we're co-stars. We are friends. We're also together. We're not one thing only. What? Married. Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell have been seen as the most lasting example of love in the rough world of Hollywood for more than 40 years. There is no wedding and no rings yet. They have been together through all of life's storms and shown that love doesn't need a wedding to last forever. So, when Goldie Hawn was 79, she suddenly told someone something she had kept secret for 40 years during what seemed like a normal chat. "I didn't want to marry Kurt because I thought we would lose each other if we did." A simple statement that didn't really mean anything, but it shook Hollywood to its core. After decades of being praised as the personification of love that lasts forever, Goldie Hawn made the first hole in her own story. And people started to wonder if the happiness that everyone had been admiring for so long was ever really quiet. What did she finally decide to tell everyone? Let's find out. As a child, she stood under a leaky roof and learned how to smile so she wouldn't cry. Now she's a Hollywood star. Goldie Hawn was born in 1945 in Tacoma Park, a town outside of Washington, D.C. They lived in a small, run-down house tucked between rows of homes for working-class people. Whenever it rained, water would fall from the roof and mix with the old piano her dad used to play. He had failed as a singer, and her mother was a tired dance teacher who was having a hard time making ends meet. Goldie would dance to the strange music in that small room, her dress spinning through raindrops. She learned how to smile there. She would wear a thin armor of sadness for the rest of her life. Even though people teased and made fun of her at school, she felt most at home on stage. At the start of the 1950s, Goldie was a short, clumsy girl with straw blonde hair that girls often made fun of. Still, something changed inside her whenever music played in her mother's dance school. She moved gracefully, and her eyes were bright. Music was the only place she felt seen and free to be herself. Every dance move was a way for her to get away from being alone in her leaky house and the mean people who followed her. The stage lights made her feel loved, but they also taught her a truth early on. Light moves around all the time. At the age of 10, Goldie danced in the Nutcracker for the first time at a small community theater in 1955. The cheers were loud and long. The bright lights made her little face look beautiful. But there was no one waiting backstage when the curtains closed and the hall was empty. Her dad had to work late. Her mother was still teaching, and all that was left was the wind and her dirty white dress. She knew at that moment that the stage only lets people see you, not keep them. The more cheers she got, the more she dreaded the quiet when the lights went out. Before she moved to New York in 1964, Goldie worked as a dancer in small theater groups around Washington, D.C. when she was a teenager. Manhattan's damp attic room was her home. During the day she danced and taught, and at night she counted her money under the cold green glow of a neon sign. As she took off her stage makeup every night, she would look at her pale, tired image and ask herself if I had stopped smiling. Does anyone still want to stay? She used her smile as a mask to stay alive, a show she could never stop giving. Born in a time of lack and raised in the public eye, Goldie learned to balance the thrill of being praised and the fear of being judged, forgotten. That quiet sense of loss followed her through her life, like her dad's unfinished piano tune or the rain that dripped through her roof. Everyone who came into her life finally left, like people who go to a show and then leave. That fear turned into a habit. She was always ready for the moment when the person she loved would leave. And that fear is where the doubt in love will always come from. Goldie Hawn's feelings about marriage started to grow. And then, as if fate were being mean, the light Goldie had been afraid of came back and made her shine even brighter than before. In 1977, Goldie met Gus Traonis at a small musical event in New York. Gus was a Cuban dancer with soft smiles and dark eyes that looked like the wind at midnight. He wasn't well known, but Goldie felt safe around him, which was something she hadn't felt safe about in a long time because she was always on the move. They worked out and danced together, ate cheap meals together in their old apartment, and laughed when it rained, sawed through the roof. Goldie thought she had finally found a place to belong when Gus told her, "I can't promise you the world, but I'll always be here when you come home." There was a quiet wedding in Hawaii in 1969, just as Goldie was getting more attention in Hollywood. There were only a few close friends there, some white flowers and the sound of laughing and waves crashing on the shore. She rests her head on his shoulder in the old wedding picture, her eyes shining with faith that love would never leave her again. Things don't always go as planned, though, after the sea. In the same year, Goldie Hawn, the girl with golden hair and a smile as bright as the sun, took the stage to receive her very first Oscar at the Academy Awards in Los Angeles. Millions of people watched her like they were seeing a new star being born. The whole world cheered and cameras flashed. But just when everything was going to be great, she saw one empty seat among the others. The guests. Gus wasn't there. Goldie went back to their small Laurel Canyon apartment when the night of glory was over. The light from the hallway fell on her unopened bags, her white dress which was still smelling like perfume, and a quiet that was so thick it felt like it had weight to it. Gus sat in the dark with his eyes closed and a half-burned cigarette in his hand. Neither spoke. There was a space between them that they couldn't see. Someone was rising to the sky and someone was still stuck on the ground. Goldie's fame grew over time, and the silence between them grew. The press called her Hollywood's Queen of Happiness, and she spent her days making movies. But the smile went away when I got home. The food got cold. The chair next to her stayed empty. Gus looked at the paper. Goldie looked at him. They were like two players who got lost in the same scene and couldn't figure out who the lead was anymore. She wrote in her notebook, "When I smile, he doesn't look into my eyes anymore." It was a very cold Christmas Eve in 1971 in Los Angeles. When Goldie got home from a photo shoot, the house was totally dark. There was only one note on the table. "I need to take a break." She fell to the floor, holding the piece of paper with shaking hands. The light from a small Christmas tree shone on her tear-stained face. The city outside sparkled. Her room was the only one that was still dark. After 2 years, the marriage ended on it was a calm afternoon, and it didn't rain. There were no yells or tears, only the cold sound of a pen scratching across the divorce papers. Gus got up and left, going to get some clothes and remember old times. Goldie stayed in the empty apartment with her dad's piano. She would listen to old songs for hours on end, as if they could bring the past back to life. She would open the window at night and look down at the city that was lit up. She would think, how many people are smiling right now but feel just as empty as I do? People said she was beautiful, popular, and wealthy at her best. But there was only one tired woman learning how to act happy in that house in the Hollywood Hills. She would take off her makeup every night, sit in front of the mirror and whisper, "If I stop smiling, will anyone still want to stay?" Goldie was afraid of being happy as she became more famous. There was no longer any faith in her in vows or forever. She knew deep down that she had already learned the hardest lesson. There is no death in love after deception. It quietly dies. In the stillness, a crack began to appear. A crack that would make Goldie Hawn never again believe that marriage could save love. However, just when Goldie thought she would never love again, fate showed up with a warm smile and a promise that seemed strong enough to heal all wounds. In 1975, Goldie Hawn, who was 30 years old at the time, sat quietly by the window on a flight from New York to Los Angeles. She hid behind big sunglasses to avoid the curious looks of other passengers who recognized her. The young singer of the Hudson brothers, Bill Hudson, with curly hair, sat next to her. He had a sweet voice and a smile that could make anyone forget how sad they were. He leaned in closer and said, Someone smiled so beautiful and looked so sad at the same time. Goldie laughed, which was the first real laugh she had let out in 2 long years. After just a few months together, they were like two souls in the middle of winter who had found warmth in each other. Bill saw Goldie, cared about her, and thought about her, which was something fame had never done for her. This love, she thought, would be different. She thought that maybe the world had finally sent her someone to heal her. They got married in Washington, D.C. on July 3, 1976. In a small church filled with golden afternoon light, Goldie wore a simple white dress, held Bill's hand, and whispered, "I'm ready to believe again." But belief can be the start of a new wound. In the beginning, their home in Beverly Hills was full of laughter, the smell of milk, and the cries of babies. In 1976, they had a son named Oliver. A few years later, they had a girl named Kate Hudson. Like her mom, she had bright eyes and a beautiful smile. Goldie felt like she had a real family for the first time. She once said in a soft Vivi,